Yes, I've been tasked with welcoming you to this event, the launch of a book published and authored by some Caucasus experts that watched the breakup of the Soviet Union. So yeah, and today on December 8th, it's a special day in this regard, as most of you will know. So we're here to hear some brief presentations about this co-authored volume. And I think Märta-Lisa and Karina, who are the editors, will begin by giving sort of the broader background to this, and then we have most of the authors here, so I guess they will say a few words on their specific pieces as well. So I think without further ado, I will hand over the floor to Karina and Märta-Lisa, and welcome to all of you.
So thank you so much for this introduction, Katrina, and thank you all for joining this presentation of our anthology. I will now turn up a PowerPoint. Vi såg sammanbrottet. We witnessed the breakup. Swedish and Danish researchers recount their experiences from the Caucasus during the final years of the Soviet Union. Well, the we in this title are 6 researchers, and we were in the Caucasus region during the final years of the USSR. And this anthology is also the number 8 in the publication series Caucasus Studies. Okay, here you see the front page and also the names of the contributors here. This is a multidisciplinary group of Swedish and Danish researchers, and we all traveled and conducted field research in the Caucasus region in the late 1980s. And well, up to the break of the Soviet Union in 1991, and also visited the period shortly after. Of course, we continued to visit the region, but that is the focus of our book. The researchers here are political scientist Ib Faurby. He was not able to join us today, unfortunately, but the others are here. So we have a cultural geographer, Lars Funch Hansen, researcher on minority issues, Helen Krag, and slavicist Märta-Lisa Magnusson, Søren Theisen, specialist on Iran and historian, and Karina Vamling, me, I'm a general linguist. And Märta-Lisa and me, we are also the editors of this book. So I turn the slide and I turn to Märta-Lisa.
On Christmas Day, the 25th December 1991, President Mikhail Gorbachev, he resigned as president for the Soviet Union, the country that he has been the leader of since 1985, first as the General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and then as president. But now this country had ceased to exist, 1991. The crucial event that had led up to the final collapse was a meeting in Minsk, in Belarus. Actually, it was outside Minsk, but let's say Minsk. When the leaders of the Russian Federation, then President Boris Yeltsin, and the leaders of Ukraine and Belarus, Stankiewicz and Kravchuk, they met and decided to actually to dissolve the Soviet Union and to establish a Commonwealth of independent state and kind of interstate organization. And this meeting, and this happened the 8th December, actually exactly 30 years ago. On the picture here, you see it is Mikhail Gorbachev. It's my photo. It was taken in 1991. It is one of his final public performances at a conference in the USSR Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe. And now you will continue, Karina, with the context of the book project.
Exactly. This is the book project. This book project started a couple of years ago. And here on these photos, you see the group in action at Malmö University. So our aim has been to describe how it was to be a field researcher in the Caucasus during the Soviet period. And we thought that our sort of main audience was our students of Caucasus studies, showing them sort of the region from our perspective and how it was to work there. But so it has not been to present research results as the main task of this, but how we witness the processes and what experiences we had from this period.
Yeah, I continue then. During the 70 years of its existence, contacts and communications with the outside world, I mean, with existence within the Soviet Union, context with the external world went through the Soviet Union capital, Moscow. And the contacts with the external world was very limited. And this was not only because of the general Soviet censoring, but also because this region, the Caucasus region, you can see it on the map, it became a peripheral region in the Soviet Union. Geographically, it is, but politically, it was made a periphery in the Soviet Union. This, of course, also had an impact on what kind of interest this region had in Western medias. Western journalists and correspondents stationed in the Soviet Union, they were mainly stationed in Moscow, and they went to this region when something spectacular had happened. But not even at the end of the 1980s, when the process of disintegration was noticeable, did it play a particularly salient role in Western media reports. Western media's attention was focused on the dramatic events in Eastern Europe, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the German reunion, but also on what happened in the Baltic region. So not much interest for what happened in the Caucasus. But we were there, and now 30 years after, we still think it was very interesting what happened there, and also can explain things that have processes that are going on today. Next.
Well, it's interesting to see that before the establishment of the Soviet Union, there was a great interest in the Caucasus, and the knowledge of the region was better, probably more widespread than even today, and especially, of course, during the Soviet period. I'm talking now about the 19th century up to 1920s, when the Soviet Union was established. And in that period, there were many Scandinavian travelers and researchers that reported, made publications, and just to mention a few famous people here, Sven Hedin and Fritjof Nansen, but there were many more. It's also interesting to note that there's been an interest in the Caucasus, in the Öresund region. So we have this book and our activities in the late Soviet period. At that time, it was not really sort of organized in the network, but at the end of the 1990s, the first organized network appeared, the Danish Association for Research on the Caucasus in Copenhagen. And this was followed by, and also parallel for some time, at the Center for Caucasus Studies at Öresund University, where we also started to develop courses on the Caucasus region, Caucasus studies. And now the current organization, the research platform at Malmö University, Russia, the Caucasus Regional Research. And it also actually spans, at least from the point of view of the persons who are involved in this, the Öresund region.
Well, all the contributions in this anthology are based on materials collected during our visits in both South and North Caucasus. The themes of our articles or contributions: new movements for independence in the Caucasus, and the picture you can see here was very typical for the period. Well, there is a lot of red flags, but actually these flags are non-Soviet flags. They are the national flags that were forbidden in the Soviet period, or at least it was not permitted to use them in public. So suddenly a lot of other flags that were not red appeared in the public sphere. We write about increasing tension with the Soviet Union center with Moscow, and also about conflicts, not only vertical conflict with Moscow, but also horizontal conflicts inside the different republics. We have these conflicts today also in Georgia and in Azerbaijan with Nagorno-Karabakh, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and others could be mentioned. We write about that, we recount how the Soviet structures at the different levels were breaking down, and national cultures became increasingly important. You can find a contribution about pre-modern traditions. These traditions still played a role, and they still do, despite almost 70 years of Soviet modernization. And we write about specific cultural features and similarities, and also deepening ethnic tension. Yes, it's important also to mention here that though this region, Caucasus region, was a periphery in the Soviet Union, it had quite a significant impact on the disintegration process and the final solution of the Soviet Union, just as the other important peripheral region, the Baltic region. the Baltic regions and the Caucasus regions were very important, played a considerable role in the disintegration process that ended, symbolic at least, today for 30 years ago, in December 1991.
So we have put up the slide here with the titles of the different contributions in this volume. You have it here in English translations, but we have written the book in Swedish and Danish. So you will get the list of titles here and the original languages here. Well, you might wonder why we wrote this in Swedish and Danish, but considering the kind of material that we are treating here, which is very personal to many of the authors here, we decided that we will express it in a better way using our native languages. Yeah, so that is the motivation behind this. Before I give the floor to the different contributors to say a few words about their articles, I would just like to show this slide again. So the book is available as an ebook at Malmö University Library. And I think you have seen the link. You can just go to this link and you can download the book. And it will also appear shortly in print in the way that it's print on demand. So we don't print a lot of books, but you can order the book at e-bookstores and to get a sort of a print book, and it will very soon be available. And we will also publish information about when it will be available on the same site at Malmö University Library. Okay, so this is the list of chapters. So now I turn again to you, Märta-Lisa, and you would just say a few words about your chapter that is the first one, and then we sort of go through the list of titles here.
Yes, but I think it's, well, I will give the floor, so to say, to the others. But very, very shortly, my article is called "The Soviet People Didn't Exist." This is. I just want to my article is about several things, but the one that I want to stress is this. This perspective, because what I experienced when I traveled in this region at this time, it confirmed what I already had a suspicion about, that the thesis of the existence of the emergence of a new historical human community, the Soviet people, this thesis, this postulate was wrong. I won't say more about it, but give the floor now to the other contributors. You can read my article.
Perhaps you would say 2 words about Ib.
Yeah, Ib, Imperialupplysning i perspective, he takes a frog perspective on what he experienced and observed, but he also takes a more global perspective, and he puts his observations in international political or geopolitical perspective. So actually his article, no.
So now we will turn to Søren, please.
Okay. Well, a North Caucasian leader from the late 19th century is supposed to have said that a rope is good when it is long and a speech when it is short. So I will be short. Read the book. But should I be a little more specific, I'll say that the about my contribution, I should say that what really impressed me was how little an imprint the Soviet period had left in the Caucasus, in some aspects. And on the other hand, how strong the several thousand-year influence from the nearby Middle Eastern countries, particularly Iran, had left. And secondly, how strong the pre-modern traditions had survived. And the role they actually played in a seemingly quite modern society. But again, as I said, read the book. It's worth it.
Thank you, Søren.
So, Helen, please.
My concern are majority-minority relations. And there are so many groups, ethnic groups in the Caucasus, and it was so, I was so surprised about how different the people were treated in a country that praised itself of being, fighting for equality of everybody, of all nations, and there was absolutely no equality in this respect. And especially the politics of silencing ethnic groups, not being able to know anything about their what had happened during history. That's what I'm writing about. And the motto was forget it. That was always the motto, and if you can, but it couldn't be silenced totally. Not no more.
Thank you.
Yes, no more.
Lars. Over to you, Lars.
So I would say that from my first visit in the region, which was in 1989, it became very clear that a specific Caucasian identity actually existed, and that it was very different from visiting Soviet republics such as the Ukraine or the Belarus that appear to be much more Sovieticized. Caucasian culture was manifested in many different ways in everyday life, as you had already mentioned, but it was the languages, the food, the drinks, the culture of dining, and the speeches, the song and dance, the architecture, etc., etc. And in some ways, when you were a newcomer, it appeared to be almost or partly Mediterranean, though still it was very much its own and very Caucasian, which we have all been working with for these last 30 years. And I have two cases in my two articles, and one is just before the fall of the Soviet Union, that became kind of a premonition for the fall, and another one that was just after the fall and was the first example of a violent and armed conflict between ethnic groups in the new Russia. In both cases, the authorities in Moscow was caught by surprise. The earthquake in Armenia in '88, together with the violent clashes between Armenians and Azerbaijani in Nagorno-Karabakh and the pogroms that has preceded it, resulted in a boost of Armenian revival, and discussions of Armenian identity and history in the last years of the Soviet Union was especially voiced by the so-called Popular Front, or sometimes known as National Fronts, as we also remembered it from other Baltic republics. Many Armenians stated that finally they could now discuss these issues openly and without the feeling of censorship from Moscow. And just discussing these issues openly, regularly resulted in free rides with taxis or free drinks in bars, as some of you know. And I won't say much about the other paper because, as Søren said, you can read it. Just mention that part of this process that led to the conflict between the Ossetians in the North Ossetians and the Ingush people over the Prigorod district was also that there had been a demographic or so-called ethnic homogenization of the republics in the North Caucasus taking place in the 1960s. Very often this is referred to as a post-Soviet phenomenon, but already since 1960s, they became less and less Russianized demographically. Still, however, Russification on a number of different levels has also taken place parallelly. But you can read more of that in the paper. Thank you very much.
I was in Georgia to do fieldwork for my doctoral dissertation on the Georgian language specifically. I was affiliated to Tbilisi State University. And during this period, I witnessed radical changes. I came in time in 87 to witness the last 1st of May parade in Tbilisi with the red communist flags that you saw on one of the photos in the PowerPoint. And during the following period, I very much saw how the independence movement with huge popular demonstrations and protests were growing. The status of the Georgian language was a very important component of Georgian identity, and it came very much into focus in this period at the expense of Russian. And in my chapter, I discuss how language policy was very much a factor, or at least a factor in the increasing ethnic tension during these years. My second chapter, that is also the last chapter of the book, is about a short field trip to Maikop in 1988. Maikop is the capital of the Adigay Autonomous Oblast in the North Caucasus, and I was to work on the Northwest Caucasian Circassian language. This was a place that I'd been struggling for 2.5 years to be allowed to visit, and that is why I called it a stronghold in the title. In this chapter, I write about why and how I became interested in researching the Caucasus and the Caucasian languages, and sort of got stuck in this field for over 30 years. But that is something you have to read about in the book. It's not so easy to report on the content of these chapters, because these are sort of somehow a patchwork of experiences and observations that mirror a process of change that we were witnessing here. So you have to read the book. Well, over to Karina. We have a few minutes left, I think.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation and for telling us a little bit of what is in the book. I'm looking forward to read your what I sense are very personal stories and experiences from a quite unique place in time. I myself became acquainted with the Caucasus partly through the works of the authors of this book. So in that sense, it's sort of a circle closing to be hosting this now. And obviously you have the unique period that you have witnessed and that you have sort of worked towards and from in many ways affect also the ways that younger scholars like myself have been able to address the region. And I think it's quite evident that much of what happened in the 90s is still in process today, even if, as Søren says, in some respects, the Soviet Union might not have left much imprint in other aspects. I would still claim that it did. So there is there's quite an interesting thing here that sort of keeps on giving in a research sense of the matter as well. So, but I will not take up the time. I think we should open the floor if anybody has questions or comments for the authors. I see Hans raising a hand and Martin raising a hand. So Hans, please go ahead first.
Was it me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a comment and a question. Now, looking at the people here, I think I can certainly speak Swedish, if that's not the problem. I do understand Danish. Så det första, det är bara en kommentar. Jag har ju väldigt liten erfarenhet av det här, men jag har rest i Georgien några gånger och jag har vänner i Georgien. Och vad jag observerade där, jag är en teoretisk fysiker så jag besökte institut där. Och å ena sidan så var det naturligtvis en väldigt stark nationell identitet, nationell stolthet, maten och så vidare och så vidare. Men samtidigt så fanns ju den här internationella inställningen och den kom från att de som var ledande på de här instituterna, och det är sant, jag vet för Jerevan, jag vet för Tbilisi, att de var ju utbildade i Moskva på Landau-institutet, som var då en av de absolut främsta teoretiska fysikinstituterna i världen. Så det hade ju spritt det här till de här länderna. Så det finns en dualitet i det här också, åtminstone inom den vetenskapliga världen. Så det är en kommentar bara. Men sen har jag en fråga, och det är något jag alltid har funderat på. Fanns det atomvapen, kärnvapen i den här regionen? Och vad hände med dem? Jag vet att det fanns i Ukraina, men hur var det här? Är det någon som vet det?
Det tror jag Märta-Lisa gärna vill svara på.
Ja. Nu är det här inte mitt område, men jag tror att atomvapnena, de fanns i den ryska RSFSR, ryska rådsrepubliken, unionsrepubliken, som var den största och politiskt viktiga. Och det fanns visst också i Ukraina och Kazakstan. Ja. Vad fanns det i Vitryssland också, Helen? Jag tror det var de här tre. Och detta har ju blivit ett stort, eller det blev en stridsfråga strax efter att Sovjetunionen gick i upplösning, för att ukrainarna kom på att de kanske hade lovat att ge ryssarna kontroll över atomvapnen lite för tidigt. Men nu är det väldigt synd att inte vi har med oss Ib Faurby. Det här är han är specialist just på det här området. Men det fanns inte atomvapen över hela Sovjetunionen och det fanns inte i Caucasus. Men det fanns i Ukraina